Six o'clock, the meeting will come to order. I'm Grace Lesbrance, Cascade Township Supervisor. Clerk Slater, please call the roll.
Nordhook.
Here.
Trustee McDonald.
Here.
Treasurer Cornstalk.
Here.
That's
Here.
Trustee Shipley.
Present.
Supervisor Lesbrance.
Here.
And Clerk Slater. Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Article 3, approval of tonight's agenda. Clerk Slater, do we have an addition that?
Yes, Manager Jade has presented each of you with a copy of the payables because we realized some of them needed to be paid before they could be approved at the next meeting, the 15th. And so if you have a chance to look over that, I would like to add that item to the agenda under financial.
Just have an adjustment in there. There's a Larry's tree service that needs to be coded to the Thornapple River SAD and not the Laraway Lake SAD. Are you sure?
Good catch.
So I ask for a motion with that.
Okay. With that amendment to the agenda, is there further discussion or a motion?
Motion to approve. Shipley supports.
The motion by Trustee Kessel, supported by Trustee Shipley, for approval of tonight's agenda with the addition of the payables. And then can we just have these attached to the packet? Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. No presentations tonight. Now is the time for the first session of of public comments on anything on tonight's agenda that is not scheduled for a public hearing. Tonight is a little bit unique. It's 6 o'clock, not 7 o'clock. And tonight is simply a workshop, a budget workshop session before the board approves the 2024 fiscal year budget. So with that, is there anyone who wants to comment who hasn't been picked on, who will be picked on later, or anyone virtually? Okay. There will be a second opportunity following the workshop. Approval of the consent agenda.
Move to approve. Shipley supports.
It's a motion by Trustee McDonald, supported by Trustee Shipley, to approve tonight's consent agenda. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Article 7, financial actions. The request for invoices to be paid on November 2nd, 2023. Discussion or a motion?
Motion made to approve the financial actions and payables of 2023. Support.
It's a motion by Trustee Shipley, supported by Trustee McDonald, to approve tonight's financial actions with the amendment as stated by Clerk Slater. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Having no unfinished business tonight, we'll move on to Article 9, new business, and this is the 2024 budget draft work session. Manager Smith, thank you. How long? 7, 8 weeks?
7.
Nice job. And also thank you for staff for being here tonight too, to answer any questions the board may have. With that, we'll let you lead and we'll ask questions.
Great. Thank you. As Supervisor just said, it's been 7 quick weeks to get to know the budget and turn the budget around. I want to thank the directors that are here tonight. We worked hand in hand in this with their recommendations, them explaining the budget and the intricacies of their particular departments so that we could put this together before you. I had emailed you a proposed budget along with a budget at a glance for 2024. Which I don't know if anybody read because I had a typo that I found myself. It said 2023 on it, so I corrected it. But so I was going to go over that real quickly and then dive into the presentation, which will be the highlights of the budget. But obviously, this is the first budget under my realm, and moving forward, I would expect the budget process to start a lot sooner than this, probably halfway through the year. And then we'll also do some forecasting of the budgets, looking out subsequent years, at least 3 years out, and do some forecasting that way. This budget that we're going to talk about tonight does have capital included in it, but it doesn't have a capital improvement plan, as the capital improvement plan expired and it needs to be expanded out another 5 years and redone. So I would anticipate that happening in the first quarter. We'll work with the directors again to look at capital needs for the next 5 years and put that together. With that, I'll jump right into the presentation because if I go through the rest of the letter, it's kind of redundant compared to what I'm going to go over tonight. I am sure that this is going to be different than the way you've been presented the budget in the past. So if there's something that you are used to seeing or want to see or request to see, please let me know. This is just a workshop, as the supervisor said, so we can go ahead and get you information. If it's something that I have overlooked and I may not be aware of as yet, that's why I asked the directors to be here too. They may be able to assist and answer some questions. It is also worth noting that we will have 2023 budget amendments coming up by the end of the year. So when we talk about the fund balances at the end, those fund balances will be different because there were some major amendments that weren't completed that need to be completed. And we also have to, most of those are in regards to the fire station, and we also have to allocate the rest of the ARPA dollars. And we can't show anything on the screen tonight because we are having technical issues with the visual system. So I'm going to refer to the packet that you all have and just kind of walk you through page by page. And I do apologize for that.
Is the audio working? Excuse me, sorry to interrupt. Audio's working.
Okay. Okay. So the first slide that you have in front of you is the organizational chart. I guess it's actually the second page. We put this together and it shows you the overall structure of the township. This is the current staffing and incorporates proposed staffing that is presented in the 2024 budget. Obviously, there's more staff than what's indicated on here, but this gives the overall layout of the departments and the township. And stop me at any point if you guys have questions, comments, or concerns. The next page is the overall township expenses for 2024. This looks at the entire township, general fund, and all of our dedicated funds and millage funds. You'll notice there's two categories on here that say other general fund and other dedicated funds. I lumped some small departments under those categories that were under $100,000. For instance, the special assessment districts, cemeteries, hazmat, drains, things like that were very small, and it would make that pie graph even harder to read and the numbers harder to read. So I lumped all those in, but you can see those breakouts in the actual budgets themselves, but this is an overall look at the budget. So the next few slides I was going to go through are the highlights and forecasts for various departments. Anything that stayed pretty much status quo, I wasn't really going to talk about too much tonight, but we can go in if there were questions on operations or questions on some of our previous expenses, we can dive deeper into those. But the first one is the administrative and manager's office highlights. One of the biggest changes for 2024 is the application of overhead allocations from special funds and millage funds back into general fund. This is a very common local government finance practice where there are services that are rendered for those special funds, and those funds are actually, some of that can come back into administration. I like to use human resources as an example because regardless of what we're doing with what department out there, human resources is involved in hiring. For instance, I know Katie spent many hours this week and last week hiring with the fire department. Well, some of those fire funds can actually be allocated back to general fund to support the costs that are associated with the general fund operations. So that is indicated in your budget. It's actually one of the first line items that you'll notice on the revenue page that shows that those dollars coming back in. I will say, and again, this is all through the process, we will have one slight change when you see the budget come before you for approval, and that is the elimination of the transfer of hazmat overhead allocation. I was unaware of the details of that, and that's actually a co-op with 2 other communities, correct, Chief? And we are basically just the fiduciary and hold the funds for that. They have a operation, and if there's a check that's needed to be cut, we cut that check. But we can't take those dollars and put it back into our general fund. So that will be eliminated.
Question, on those, millage funds, how is it a percentage or how did you determine?
Yes, I'll show you just for a visual, but there's a formula. There's a sheet that has all of the funds listed at the top
Yep.
with all of the budget dollars here. And then all of the department heads went through and looked at them and their staff and gave us a percentage as to how much time they spend on various items and various funds. So for instance, we can talk about Parks and Recreation, the Pathways and the Open Space Fund. Clearly, Building and Grounds and Parks staff spends an enormous amount of time, and engineering on those activities. So some of those dollars support the general fund. So it is on a percentage basis. There is some things that there are some dollars that were calculated out, which weren't applied. And I'll use the fire department as an example. The fire department, clearly there's a administrative overhead that can come back to general fund, but general fund already has committed to putting X amount of dollars back to the fire department, and it's paying off the debt for the fire station. So it didn't make any sense to take money just to turn around and give them money back. So that we made that judgment not to apply it there.
Is there a maximum percentage that a law allows?
No, there's no maximum, but you've got to make sure that you can back it up if you were ever questioned during the audit.
Okay.
Do you know, Manager Smith, about how much that, by doing that for the first time, that brought back into the general fund?
Yes.
See?
Almost $1,000.
Almost $1 million.
Can we do that to go back to a 1 year prior? And if can we, and 2, do you recommend it or just leave it alone?
I don't think you can,
Okay.
but I can ask the auditors that. I don't know that that would be an allowable chargeback for that. And I'm not so sure that I would. As we work through this transition, and I think the budget has some pretty different numbers in it this year, I think it would be best to wait and not do it. But if it's the will of the board to do that, I can actually ask and look into it. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the overhead allocation? Because that is probably one of the biggest changes that we have in 2024.
The engineering services,
Mhm.
Can you just explain that, how that's different?
So engineering services, we have a dedicated engineering department it's under administration, but expenses that it's actually labeled as engineering, but within some different funds, for instance, Pathways, the DDA, our road funding, engineering costs are worked into those funds as well, or those departments, because naturally there's going to be engineering costs that are associated with those activities.
And those will be listed?
Yep. Yeah,
Perfect.
when you guys get projects that come before you, you'll actually have a breakdown between what's engineering costs. If it goes to the outside, if Eric does it on internally, there won't be any engineering costs that we will absorb.
This is good, because one of the big issues that didn't make sense is that we'd go through the whole budget presentation and engineering wasn't mentioned in it at all. But then when you looked at our particular engineering firm, we were paying over $500,000 a year. So this is a lot more helpful and a lot more accurate.
Yeah, when we bring projects forward, and I know Melanie and I talked about this recently, when a project comes before the board for approval, it's going to be all encompassing, not just the contractor, not just the engineer, not just design, or not just construction. It'll be the whole project.
And it won't just be generic capital outlay.
Yep. The finance director funding is included in the 2024 budget. Training line item went up just a little bit, but we have some new staff that was hired in 23, and also I'm looking at hiring. There will be some new staff in 2024. And then another line item that was a recommendation and was being studied by the Planning Commission and went through the Personnel and Finance Committee is the creation of a green space preservation fund. And that line item, excuse me, there was allocated $100,000 to that. And I don't know if Trustee Nord Norhuck, if you want to touch on that or not, or
It's just been coming up in the planning commission that it's time to start setting aside some green space in the township, so we wanted to get that fund started. We were gonna lean a little bit on some of our developers, and as they consume green space, we want them to set some aside, or so this is a good way to start the line.
and I think this is new, but I think it's appropriate to allocate it in the budget and then come back before the board with an actual policy and program as to how we're going to apply those funds and what it's going to take to actually manage that particular line item. And we'll work with the planning department on that as well.
Thank you.
Moving on to the next page, which is building and inspections. Revenue from permits is likely to be less in 2024 than in 2023. This has to do with a couple of different reasons. We had some large permits that were paid for in 2023, but the projects are going to be, they haven't occurred yet, but the money was all taken in 23, so it has to be booked in 2023. And then actually there's trends out there right now when you look at building trends. Permits are going down, and that's not just in Cascade, that's across the industry, across the state. We are upgrading and integrating our cloud version of BSNA. It is cloud version, right? Yes. And so the building fund is going to fund some of that. But there is still fund balance to be held for building activities as it has to be by law. But there are sufficient dollars are being transferred back to the general fund to cover administration costs, as we just discussed. And the building inspector, additional building inspectors included in the 24 budget as well. Any questions on that? Okay. Moving on to the next page, which is the clerk's office. This one was pretty complex this year because there's a lot of what ifs happening in 2024, starting with the fact that we could have 4 elections. We will for sure have 3, could have 4. Not sure what our reimbursement will look like for those elections. And we have some decisions to make as a township too in regards to the millage renewals, which we'll talk about at the end of the presentation. So a lot of things up in the air there, but we do know that costs are going to go up. So we were pretty good on the costs. We did elevate or increase the revenue, but we're just not sure what that revenue is going to look like that we could get reimbursed. Moving on to economic development / DDA. There was a pretty significant change to the transportation services line item with the elimination of the rapid and the moving to the Hope Network and having them present their numbers. Doesn't look like ridership is there, so there needs to be some decisions made on what transportation is going to look like, if any, in 2024. So moving forward in 2024, the line item was actually, it's still there, but it was left blank. So if it needs to be amended, we'll have to amend that at a later time once a decision is made what we're going to do to public transportation. And I believe that will probably be data driven at the end of the year once we get numbers from Hope. That's my understanding. That's my recommendation would be kind of do an analysis after we get through December.
You see, she sent, I think Hope Network sent recent numbers.
Yeah,
today.
but there wasn't any, I asked for updated numbers, but she sent me an email that embedded the riderships into the email, but no data to back it up. So I have a question whether those numbers are actually accurate, because if you have 300 riders, is that 300 trips? So it's the same rider counted twice? Or is it actually 300 individual riders?
Also,
Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's
Okay.
same kind of twice.
I had
Right.
also asked at the last meeting for them to provide us the balance of what they've been collecting from riders. Because that money really comes back to the township, because we're paying upfront for them to provide the service. When people pay $3 per ride, that money is supposed to come back.
Which will help us verify the numbers.
Exactly. And so I had asked for that, and I know I haven't seen it. I don't know if you've gotten that yet.
I have not, but I will make a note to look into that.
And that's 100% of the
100%.
ridership cost, right? Because then we're fronting the 100% of the service.
Some of the other things are some additional capital funding for the pedestrian bridge over the Thornapple River, the Cascade Branch Friendship Park. and branch interior. And then there's some other initiatives that the DDA is looking at that will support a conceptual plan for the village and other planning support in this transition that we have without having a planner right now. I'm not sure if everybody's aware, but Brian Hilbrand has actually resigned his position, is no longer with the township. So we'll be looking at some more of this activity as we forward with the new employee as well.
He's at the airport.
Next section is our highlight is the fire department. Just to give a little, I'm sure you're all aware that the fire department is funded by 3 millages and $400,000 fund. One of those millages is up this year. We got the addition of the deputy chief. The building department is actually contributing more to the fire department because of the structure of the inspections that they're doing. And I know that Brian and the chief have worked together on coming up with that number, and we've got documentation how they arrived at that. So that's included in the fire department. The weather siren checks will now be split 50-50 with the police millage. And then there's additional dollars for an athletic trainer where we saw an increased expense in the past. I'm assuming that's through workman's comp claims that hopefully we find it effective to bring somebody in like this, but we'll take a look at it, make sure that it's effective. And then utility prices are difficult to estimate at the new fire station because it's not open yet. So the utility costs, it was kind of a guess at this point. So we'll have to just monitor those and make sure they're accurate in 2025. Parks and Recreation and Building and Grounds, probably some of the biggest changes in the budget. Parks and Rec Department is funded by multiple budgets, including general fund, parks and building and grounds, the pathway millage, open space millage, the DDA, historical society, some from general fund, and then Thornapple River SAD and Laraway Lake SAD. They also, and also the cemetery maintenance fund. So there's activities that happen in all of those that help that building and grounds in the parks actually support. They did not have a previously full funded budget, I believe, until 2023. So I worked with Melanie. She's been working with her staff to kind of right size the budget going into 2024, which is what you have before you. I think there's still some unknowns, but I think it's in a much better position than it was 12 months ago.
What does the Historical Society, what from the Historical Society goes back?
It actually doesn't. It actually doesn't. I probably shouldn't have had that on there
That's okay. I just,
because we just write them a check. So I learned that.
it'd be nice to have from the, I think this might be the only one, but, kind of an accounting of how the funds are spent. I don't think we've ever seen that. I can't, anything
Historical?
similar to the Historical Society.
Okay.
Like we get it for Thornapple River SAD, we get it for Laraway Lake, but I don't remember seeing anything from the Historical Society.
I don't.
They usually
remember
give us a
seeing-
report at the end of each
Yeah.
year, and I don't
Oh,
think we
good.
got it this year, but
Okay.
they do
Right.
show their expenses.
And I think that there was an oversight, or it's for some reason they didn't get their funding until maybe the summer. I'm not sure why.
we just paid that.
Oh.
What was that? Like, I don't know, 4 weeks ago or so. So they got their dollars.
Thank you for catching that. I don't know why that.
Continuing on with parks, maintenance and supplies have increased appropriately because obviously the budget wasn't correct or wasn't sufficient before. We've added new community promotions to do some community outreach and promote our parks and pathways, connecting Rec Park to the city water, or at least getting the service there. So if we ever want to actually install restrooms or any sort of other water needs there, we have it plumbed there. So I don't know if you want to add to that, Melanie, but
Just the concern that we have not tested it for PFAS. And so currently we do have two drinking fountains. And we are directly in the heart of PFAS concerns. And so it is something that, this is a good time because of the other plumbing that's going on in the area that would be more cost effective than the economy of scale. So better to do it now than later because we likely will have some PFAS issues.
thanks. We're also looking at maintenance software added to assist the department in tracking maintenance and schedules. Our parks are pretty vast and our staff is pretty small. So we need to make sure that we're utilizing the right sort of technology to make sure that if there are issues in our parks, whether it's, broken boards, trip hazards on a step, broken benches, falling down trees. We've got a reporting mechanism. Not only can we track it, but we also can have the residents track it. So Melanie and Ryan have been looking at different software programs that can supply that to the township. But that's included in the budget. And then certifying 4 of our employees and a volunteer coordinator for pesticide certification. There's nobody on staff right now currently that actually is certified to do that. Yes.
Do we need more staff? Is it hard to find staff?
I think we're still analyzing that, but I'll defer to Melanie.
You're still trying to determine, the full-time staff and how many we need there. I made recommendations to more casual employees, more, seasonal. Again, trying to get more on the weekends and maybe even into the evenings to help us. It would come at a lower cost. It's only during our busy seasons. The problem with adding a full-time staff is that you get them during the times when you don't have as much work like the way.
Right.
And so it'd be more important to do it during our busier season, are preparing for summer and then clean up for winter.
And how old do you have to be to apply for a part-time or for a summer?
It's an
Buildings and
excellent
grounds.
question. It really will depend, I'll work with our HR. Right now it's 18, it's something that we should maybe potentially look at because of OSHA laws. And, utilization of using motorized equipment, that's pretty strict in law. Some communities, because of having issues with recruiting people, they had to lower that to 16, then have them doing just non-motorized work, but at this point, it's 18. And Katie has done a phenomenal job of getting people despite the current market for employees. And so I'm hoping it'll be the same next year.
There's another benefit too with additional casual employees, then you're not paying the legacy costs and the insurance for full-time employees. But I think that's something we'll monitor and see how that goes this next year.
So all the work this summer has been done with the same amount of employees, correct?
Well, yes.
One added, one.
One issue was last year, we really we had budgeted for 5 seasonal, but yet we have never had that in the last couple of years because of leadership. Katie, thankfully, posted it anyway, knowing that I was coming into the position. She posted it and we were able to get 2 seasonal, but not the full 5. That really would have been more appropriate.
Well, I think the improvements are obvious, so thank you. Looking
My guys
good.
are about to get burnt out. I will say
Yeah.
that. It's, being it because they're very proud of their jobs, but they can't keep it the same.
Moving on to the planning department, planning and zoning per diem has increased, as the stipend has increased. We did decrease the casual wages in planning department. We did add funds to digital imaging for, so that we can contract to have our planning and zoning files digitized. And then the biggest thing probably the biggest change in the planning department is also the tree line item of $90,000. This was a recommendation through the Personnel and Finance Committee as well. This will take care of not only maintenance, but an installation of trees where they may be needed in our parks or along our pathways. We found that we've been putting the pathways in, which we're going to rectify how we construct a pathway moving forward, that we need to make sure if there's trees coming out, that we need to make sure we're putting trees in where appropriate, but also trees die. So we need to have some sort of funding mechanism to replace trees in our parks. And some of our parks could use additional trees anyway. So this was a way to get that started. And that number, we may or may not use it this year, but it's there as a line item. It does get expensive when you start to take trees out. And especially if you look back at the last couple of years, we've had some pretty crazy windstorms that have taken out trees across the state. This will help if we need to pull from that fund to react to some of those storms as well. So those are the highlights for all of the funds, all the departments. The next section I was going to go into is the capital outlay, which is more specific. It's where we see probably some of our biggest dollar amounts that are in the 2024 budget proposal. I'll start with the fire department. These are obviously all at Station 2. If we need capital at Station 1, we're in trouble.
Better not need it, yeah.
But so at Station 2, we're looking at replacing, a lot of it is concrete. There's some issues over there. It's an older station. It has some concrete repairs. It's also the place where there was dumpsters set up for yard waste collection every year, and you can't set that on asphalt. So we actually need to put in a concrete pad to house that dumpster. It is probably the only place we have where we can house a dumpster like that. We clearly can't do that at the township hall or at Station 2. So the dumpster pretty much has to go there. So we've got to adapt to that. And then there is a need for a storage shed at that station. Parks and Recreation and Building and Grounds. This list is pretty lengthy. But I think, again, through looking at everything through 2023, the needs are there for some fleet replacements, upgrades to the Tassel Park bathroom upgrades, Cascade Rec Park facility improvements, an enclosed trailer to house and to transport some of the additional equipment that we've been acquiring, park signs, picnic benches, wood chipper, Burton Park bathroom upgrades, some plows, a backblade, and then the last one is about the Tahoe building at the Township Hall. There's dollars allocated in there, and I know that we've only been in there a few years. It's not a newer building, but we've only been in there a few years. But there are some maintenance issues that need to happen at that building. One being the parking lot. We have a leaking roof. The HVAC system is not working. We may need some additional office space. And then we need to improve the ADA accessibility for that building. You can't walk up to the building now and actually get in. If you were in a wheelchair, it's very hard for someone to get into the building.
Yes, please.
And then in my short time here, I've witnessed people pulling up onto the big sidewalk when you come up to the front doors to return their ballots, and they pull right up to the front door. It's not even part of the parking lot. So we need to get some protective bollards so that nobody comes flying in and takes out our greeters. So
I understand why you need these things. I just think there's a lot of frustration.
Not with you.
Not with you, not with things how they currently are. But with the past, with that building and hearing the ADA thing, that was the last, I wasn't even on the board, and that was the last huge adjustment that had come back to the board, was to a huge dollar amount to make the building ADA accessible. So it's just frustrating. It's nothing about you.
2020, before the primary, huge $500,000 additional expense, and the reason listed was additional office space and ADA compliance, and we have neither. But thank you, Manager Smith, for cleaning this up and finishing the project.
we're moving forward.
Yeah.
So with all that is written into here. And the second page actually shows some pictures of some of the capital upgrades. Those are some of the restrooms that we have, which are not very inviting to the public. The dump truck, the picnic benches, which they're not even up to code. So just wanted to give some examples of what we do have out there.
That's the dump truck.
That is the dump truck.
Before broken or after broken?
Well,
Hard to
it
tell.
is broken.
It's broken. I think that doesn't shut right.
Got it.
I don't think that doesn't shut right. I think, the wires open like that, but it definitely has holes, rusted holes throughout the dog.
Which is not only just aesthetically not good, but that's a liability for us too. If we have employees that are working around rust and they get caught, I mean, these guys are working out in the field. So something has to be done in regards to fixing our fleet.
And the addition of a wood chipper,
Yes.
our own.
Yes. So those are the highlights for the capital. I unfortunately did not total the capital improvements. It is in the budget, but it is a significant amount compared to previous years. But those are the big capital items that we're looking for 2024. And again, the capital improvement plan will be coming before you, hopefully by the end of the first quarter of 2024, as we put that together. We already have the format. The format's already been in place. It's what you guys are probably used to. We just need to get it current and then move it forward and then represent it. Which we've already started that process, but we need to actually formalize it and bring it back before you. The next two slides that you have was requested out of our Personnel and Finance Committee, just to kind of show some of the overall debt that we have as a township. We have four, in regards to debt service, we have four items that we're paying down. One is through the DDA, one is the brownfield, one is the open space, and one is the current is the new fire station. The open space debt will be paid off in 2027. So that's only got a few more years on it. Everything else, the DDA debt will be done in 2008. And then everything else, you can see the timeline on there. I just wanted to put that up, but I do know our bond rating is good. But our, that's not unrealistic debt that we have, in my opinion. The next page, I wanted to just put some notable fund balances on here so you can see that at the and I forgot to update the heading on this. I apologize, Wendy. These are these beginning fund balances are January 1st of 2024, and the ending fund balance is the projection at December 31st, 2024. So it doesn't have to do with today's current fund balance or any sort of amendments that we may make. So these will change depending on how the audit comes out and what amendments are made. But from a planning perspective, you have to do a snapshot in time when you're doing the budget. And this is where we're looking to be starting the year off in January of 2024.
When we say notable, sorry, how many are not notable?
Well, I didn't go into, we have a drains fund, we have the SAD funds, we have the hazmat fund that are all small. I did not put those on here.
But those those are listed in here, right?
Those are absolutely listed in the budget. Yes. Yep.
Can we make this public also?
It will be.
Okay, good.
Yep. I do want to note that the general fund balance is going to significantly look different after we do our budget amendments. I've been talking with a few of you and Trustee Kessel knows this as well. There was dollars committed from the board to go towards the fire station that were never actually adopted or approved as an amendment through the board to the tune of $3.5 million. So you're going to see those amendments come back before the board and included in that the year-end ones. So when we do that, you will see, I think general fund will be the only one that's affected. Maybe DDA, but the general fund is going to be the biggest one.
And that's not accounted in these notable.
It is not, because it's actually not on the books yet. And I can't even put it into the system until we do that, because then it's part, if you look at the budgeting act, you just can't, you can't put that in the budget if you haven't actually taken action to do it.
Right.
So we shouldn't buy that big chunk of property that
Probably not.
joking.
They'll
We're not
likely-
as rich as we thought we might be.
They'll likely go down to about 5 million.
Yes.
Yep.
Mhm. Yep.
Thank
Which
you.
is still a very healthy fund balance for the general fund and for the township.
What would you recommend as far as like yearly expenses and how much to keep? How much to carry in that general fund?
I think it would probably vary by person that you ask, but if you're asking me, so I'll tell you, I don't know if you have $5 million sitting in the bank and let's say you had a major catastrophe that you had to fix. $5 million does not go as far as it did, 10 years ago. If we had a major issue with the dam that we had to fix, $5 million isn't going to go that far. So some people may say, oh, your fund balance is very high. You can also almost cover 1 year's of expenses with your fund balance, which is good. But that $5 million could be wiped out very easily, depending on what kind of issue we may have.
Well, we also have that unfunded pension liability.
We do,
Quite high.
and I'll mention that now. I did not address that in what I'm presenting to you tonight because it wasn't something that I don't have the permission. I don't have the actual numbers on it yet. And, but it is something that I will look for and come back with a report before we formally adopt this budget at the,
We, at the Personnel and Finance Committee, we've been asking about that all summer, I think, right, Katie? And it seems like at the last meeting, maybe before Ted had left, we were told some numbers, and it was not as high as what we had been told originally, rumor wise.
yeah, and there's usually documentation that we can get right from MERS. And it's also probably, I didn't dig through the audit before tonight, but it should be listed in the audit.
Yeah, I think it was 3.6 million.
It's not, that's
Mm-mm.
not.
But is that
not
total,
what we
is
were-
that total unfunded for the whole
That
township?
was a total net pension liability as the end of last year.
Because then you take that number and you got to break it down by the different funds too, because there's gonna be different liability that's charged to the fire fund. So,
Right.
but
that
I'll
was
do
a
some
total-
deeper diving onto that.
Yeah,
or
do you
into that.
remember, Katie?
I don't remember the amount, but I reached out to MERS and they sent that, attachment and a number. of what
Right.
we got.
It was not more than like $500,000.
Yeah,
I
it
mean,
was
it
a-
was nowhere near
No,
3 point
it's-
something.
It's quite a bit more than that. We
But-
have,
That's what we were worried about.
Yeah.
That's why we had reached out. We spent a lot of time this summer trying to figure this out, and I will say, maybe it's not right, but the numbers that we were given back were nowhere near $500,000.
It wasn't as scary as we were afraid.
we committed, Doug mentioned it when he presented the audit, and we committed just about 500,000 for the unfunded liability, but when he asked him, he told us what it was, and it was a few $1 million.
Because we
Was
asked,
it that to keep it at 70% funded?
yes, that was part of it, was that the recommendation was to keep it at 70% funded. And we had asked because we wanted it earmarked somewhere under our general fund, because we
Mhm.
didn't want the money sitting there looking like it was money sitting in our general fund, which is frustrating that that's how it's been all this time. And when the numbers came back to us, it was not a very high amount.
So between the fire station 3.5 not being taken out, which should have been, and then this, it was,
It seemed like it brought our balance down to around 4.5 million is what I was remembering. But again, I don't have any of that stuff in front of me from that meeting. It would have been back in August.
So there is dollars in the budget going towards the defined contribution plan, but I know we still have active employees. So Katie and I will work on that and get that.
Because I think part of it was we didn't have that many employees. Katie, do you remember?
But the unfunded part also looks at your retired employees, because that's the
oh, the
unfunded.
funded is 70.5. It's the unfunded that would,
That's
what,
what we were looking.
yeah,
at.
29.5 or.
Yes,
Mhm.
I will
It'll
break
be
that down.
interesting to see what. you
Yeah,
come
I'll
up
do
with,
some research and
because-
we'll break that down. We'll get an official document from MERS that spells that all out and breaks it out.
That'd be
And then
good.
I'll include that with the budget packet when we present it.
every time.
The next 2 pages, I like to show this.
We talked.
What you see in front of you is some historical revenue and expenses by some of the larger funds that we have. What will look different on this in moving forward is we'll also show some forecasting too. This is, I think, a good way to budget appropriately when you think you may have too much or too little in a fund, that you may want to start making some adjustments to make sure that you're good looking at trends. The building department's a good fund to look at when you're looking at trends, because we all know how quickly the market can change. But also like something like the Pathways Fund, where you could have a very large project to take on in a couple of years. And you may say, yeah, we've got a ton of money in there. We should move some of that compared to our expenses. Well, you really shouldn't, because you want to work that into the forecast and make sure that you're budgeting appropriately.
We
So-
did, yeah, we did that with the Burton Street Bridge. That was like estimated at 3.5 by our old engineers. That would have been a huge chunk, but then since we got the state funding for that 100%, we could then do the maintenance on all the original trails that we did this summer.
Right. So this will look a lot, this, I wanted to show you this because I just wanted to kind of make things start to look like you'll see it next year too. So this actually just shows a historical look back, but I will also include something looking forward next year. So the next page is probably going to take some discussion. It's on the millage rates and the dates. So these are all the current millages that we have at the township. We've got 2 that expire this year. And one is the fire and one is the library. So they're up for discussion as to what to do to move those forward, whether it's a renewal, an increase, or not to renew them. So it's something that I've been starting to talk to our legal counsel in regards to the procedure, the process to make sure that we don't miss a step. I've got a call with them tomorrow to fill out some paperwork and then get them the current language that we have for both to move them forward for a renewal. We do have 4 opportunities to renew next year, February, May, August, and November. That's when there's elections. Caveat to that, though, there's nothing on the docket yet for the May election. So if it were to be put on the May election, it would be at the township's cost. We would pay for the entire election. We wouldn't share the cost or be reimbursed for anything to run that one in May.
Did you get the wording for the fire/police one yet? No, we talked about it.
Yes, I believe I did.
Just wondering if any of it goes to police or if it all is just going into the fire.
Not ideal.
No. But and personally, I think it looks bad if we're.
Do you know, Chief? I think that was one I was still trying to look up and I'm having.
You're back then.
Is it common to have like 3 different millages for fire?
That's gonna raise some eyebrows with your taxpayers.
Yeah, it's a terrible, I mean, I know.
They've already voted on it once because they're
Yeah.
already in place.
We only have 2, and the one is, it goes directly to the police.
But then that means we have
Have
no, then we
another
have
police
2.
one down further at the bottom. That's the one that goes directly to the police.
That's the East Precinct specifically for
That's the
patrol.
specific one. So that's why I'm wondering what the police fire one goes to, because I think that one's going to the fire.
Do you have this, Jen?
I do.
Because it does say fire police and then.
Says fire, police. And I'm looking at, I have the one from Oksana too, that she has 245290 that goes. All to. Police. 45290 is all police that she proceeds to on her millage report.
Right, and I think that's the one on our report is different than what you're looking at, because I've seen that paper, but it's the last one here. It doesn't expire until 2034. And the police/fire one expires in 2027.
Correct. Right, so that's 0.4372 was the original voted in. And then the other one for the police, 491.
We rolled it back.
So the one for, I have the one for the one that expires in 2034.
Right.
We have both of them.
I'm still wondering about
Can
the other
we-
one in 2027, because
I have most of those in my file for my 2029, so I got it from clerk's office a while back. When I was trying to correct the expiration dates on the villages. So you're looking for the wording on it?
yeah, on the fire/police one, the one that expires in 2027.
I can check my files tomorrow to see if I got it out from the ballot.
So it'd be interesting to know what it said and whether that money is going to the fire department or whether it's going into the police fund.
I think it'd be helpful right now, and there's only, what, 7, to go through, just start at the top and kind of, for what we do know, read out what the millage is specifically for.
I have all of those except for the one you guys are questioning. So I can if you'd like.
Let's do it. Just, if anything, for those listening who are going to be asking for it.
So you want the purpose,
Mhm.
is what you're looking for. So the purpose for the one that's expiring this year
So the top ones, that's,
Yep. It authorized the township to levy a millage to finance a new firefighter, emergency medical response positions, plural, and operate the Buttrick Station 24 hours, 7 days a week while continuing 24 hours, 7 days a week at Thornhill Station.
so that's
So
basically
I would
first
assume that this
responder.
then was probably passed when they brought Station 2 online. Or when, maybe was it ever, has it always been staffed 24/7?
Previous to 2004, it was not staff quick road. It was a pay on call only. And then in 2004, it funded tender, and it also funded full-time staff at station.
So that's the one that's up for renewal.
What was the, when was that originally, voted on?
04.
So the 20-year million go.
Yeah.
So that's strictly operations?
Just fund station 2 staffing and operations.
So this is going to be tricky because we're rolling out the brand new fire station and then the year before, and then as soon as possible, we're going to turn around and ask the voters for the millage, but the reality
Well,
is.
it goes on. The levy, it also funded the purchase of a second medical response vehicle and fire truck, and the levy would fund scheduled replacement of fire equipment. That to me means in the future.
Yep.
So it would continue to fund equipment. So basically all operations.
So very critical that residents understand what the millage is for.
With the way they wrote it, it covers everything because it even refers to response positions. So it includes personnel costs, operating costs, and capital purchases.
For Station 2.
No,
All of them, both of them.
So then are we looking at, well, perhaps being accused of double dipping because we have another budget that covers fire department?
Well, we're already accused of it by some anyways, even if,
Well-
but there's no, it's just difficult to explain.
it is.
And it's a bad time because, I mean, we didn't,
I understand that. And I understand when Station 2 was needed for quicker response and medical response and a new tanker over there. But now as a taxpayer, I look at it and say, okay, you've got Station 2, you've got it staffed. Is there staff costs now combined with the other fire department budget? And if so, why are you asking for the staffing of Station 2 twice?
Well, and I don't know if this is going to answer your question or not.
Probably not.
Probably not. I would like to know what the one that expires in 2027, if that's currently going to fire, because in a perfect world, we would, if we're going to ask for a new millage for 2024, we would take the one that's expiring in 2023 and the police fire one that's expiring in 2027, combine them. If it has to be increased, it would have to be increased, but it would be more transparent to do it at once.
Absolutely.
And bring that and get rid of, when we would get the one approved, we would release the 2027 one. We would still have another one that would go for 10 more years. But with the unknown cost of inflation and how much more everything's costing, maybe it's better to have offset ones 10 years apart versus having this random one that's 4 years later. Because I think the citizens, including myself, going to vote, I'm going to remember in 4 years that I just approved one next year. So I think the best bet would be to combine at least those two and increase if we need to.
And I agree with you. They ought to come under one instead of,
Yeah.
I agree.
and to make it even,
Be more, I think it would be more transparent if the wording on it was labeled more of a general.
And that's fine. I don't have any problem with that, but to copy the wording again and say, oh, by the way, we want to renew this.
Right.
And people are going to say, wait a minute, Station 2's been there for the past 10 years and it's already established.
Well, I think the wording would be changed and it would be basically to continue the support of everything back in 2004.
and then the 2000, that was what, 20 years ago? So I don't know what our population was in 2004 that was based off of operating costs, but 13,000 people. So we're over 20,000 people right now. And so our operating cost back in 2004, we've way more than that. So this millage is too small, and our operating cost they don't reflect what our actual costs are. So not only do we have to go to the voters in election year and ask for the renewal of one of 3 millages, if people want to get a response when they call 911 or have, a fire, it needs to be higher.
We've had about 150% increase in all volumes since 2004 as well. Tax. Just
And when I started, the talk was we're going to go right into a fire station 3 out by the airport because of all the anticipated development. That would absolutely sink us. No way. So that's put on hold
All I'm saying is that I think
forever.
for clarity to the taxpayers and the residents, if we cleaned it up and put it in one millage, like,
Or at least two where they're 10 years apart,
yeah,
but move those two together. Bump it up based on inflationary cost and inflationary stuff that happens because we have way more residents, but I think that would be the best bet.
So then we have 3 cracks at 3 election possibilities in 2023 to get this millage passed, right?
Are we too late for the first one?
So can I give a couple of, we're not too late, but it'll have to be very quickly. But can I just touch on a couple of things in regards to this? So confirmed with Jen yesterday, but when you look at all the 3 millages that we do have, it does not even support it does not cover the cost of the fire department. The fire department will actually, general fund will be subsidizing the fire department if something's not done in 2 years, in 2025. So in order to make that a reality, you'd have to basically double the millage that, and probably a little bit more than what the renewal would be asking for. So it actually would almost be a new millage.
Would
I've
we be
actually
able-
talked to the attorney on that and he's making sure that how we would actually have to word that.
Would we be able, which we probably don't know yet, get rid of the one that expires in 2027?
Eliminate it now,
Yes,
if you could replace it.
because that, in a perfect world, that.
Can we do that?
Yes, I believe it depends on how it's written, but I believe the board has the authority to assess the millage or not assess the millage unless it specifically states, do you know, Jen? If I don't have all the details on that one.
I just think it would look better to the
The
voters.
27 one.
If we,
I did just do some of the math too, and it is split between fire and police, and it's not even split 50-50, which is weird.
who's getting more?
Is this the one that we don't have the language on yet?
Yes.
Do you want me to run back to my office and go?
We'll get it. We can get it later.
Can you scan it and send it to us though, just so we can look at it, please?
Yeah,
because
I
then-
did ask- I'm pretty sure I have all of them in there because I asked for them a couple of years ago.
Does anyone, Trustee Kessel, you were on the finance committee for during all of this, or anyone who was here before? Do you guys remember the history? There's probably a reason it
Don't
was so
remember the
confusing.
27, but I think, Adam, you were involved in doing a spreadsheet for all the millages and you ran it out, factoring in employee cost, equipment cost and everything. And we knew, before the millage expired, that we were gonna run short of funds.
Correct.
That's why we had to fund 400,000 a year out of the general fund. We knew that. And so when a millage comes up for a renewal in 23, if we can combine, I don't remember what the police and fire, what that breakout was, and that one that expires in 27.
Everything on my paperwork has from what Ben gave me, I can't verify its accuracy, but everything that I have in 27 for fire has us at 0.2 something, which would be about half of what's showing on this. So I'm guessing there's some sort of split. I can't verify that. It's just what the paperwork I was given.
With the rollback, it's 222 right now.
Correct.
That would have been a 2007 millage.
Mhm.
So
So that's the-
Actually, it was
Hmm?
2008.
Yeah, and
Because
the
see,
police
thing about
fund,
it, the police fund has $2 million, I think, sitting in there right now, right?
Mhm.
And so my thought would be, as a taxpayer within the community, it'd be easier to digest if we took the 0.4 and the 0.57, combined them into one to make them for the fire and do some sort of increase that we would need to. It seems like the police fund is funding itself nicely with its separate millage that expires in 3034. That would be,
one of those was rolled back. Do you remember which one? One of the millages for police. I don't know if it was police fire or whether it was the bottom one for police. We rolled it back several years ago by I can't remember the percent now, but we had a rollback on that millage.
I thought the police increased last.
Are you
time
talking about the in
As a-
2014?
As a resident.
One of them, yeah.
Yeah, so the 2014 police millage that expires in 2034 is 0.25. Oh, you did roll it back.
What was it previously?
It got rolled back to 0.2491. Does that even make sense, Jen? From 0.25?
Which one are we looking at?
We're looking at the police one that expires in 2034. It was done in 2014.
I have one that was 8/6/2013.
It says that shall the previously voted increase in the constitutional tax rate limitation of general ad valorem taxes within Cascade Township of 0.25 mils reduced to 0.2491. I don't know that there was actually,
Tiny reduction.
I don't think there was actually reduced by inaction of the voters. I think it was a reduction just because of rollbacks. Would that be accurate?
And I'll look on the original, but I have that was the authorized millage at the election was 0.2491.
Right. And then what are we assessing?
We're at 0.2457 with the rollback.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, it
that's
wasn't
what I
one
said.
that went to voters. It's one the board voted roll back. I can't remember what year it was. There's got to be a record of that. Mhm.
So education campaign we're at November 2023 right now.
Yeah. So
We're gonna have a fire mill for residents in 2024 if people want to get a response when they have a heart attack or there's a fire. I don't have a problem with all the numbers. They are what they are, and we didn't ask for the situation, but we'll deal with it. So I think that Chief, you've got some a great crew. The more that people just have the actual numbers and the need, the better. But we're going to need an education campaign.
So just to answer the other question before we get too far into the weeds is if you wanted to take it to the election in February, we have to have a board, has to pass the board by resolution at the next meeting. And then it has to be to the county by December 5th, correct, Jen? Yes.
Do you have the capacity to put that together in time?
I talked to our attorneys, and if that's the desire of the board, we can make it happen.
So, and then can we get clarification on I know it sounds like it's split in half, but the police fire, just clarifying how much that is, just so we can look at the long term to make sure the police fund will still be funded in 2034 all the way out. Just to see, because in a perfect world, it would be nice to combine them two and then do all 100% of the one going to the fire and then any increase in addition to that we would have to do.
If it fails in February, then we still have two more shots.
Right.
Let's remember, we got $1 million fire truck coming.
Very needed, right, Chief?
I think that's worked into the projection for 25. If not
It looks like
with
the township's paying the bond payment.
It'll be done right about 24-25.
Oh, no, that's.
Well, you have to
I'm looking at
remember-
projections that actually include the millage getting renewed. It was, okay, never mind.
I was just gonna say, you have to remember that that's always been a priority with our voters, and they are willing to pay whatever it takes for that fire protection. It's never been an issue.
Yeah, and I think just before I forget, moving forward with the revenues on the police fund and the fire fund, we'll start adding some line items to show if they're funded by separate millages, I'll have 3 separate
Thank you.
tax
Very-
levy line items so that it's much clearer, and we'll label those so that the people that come after us understand.
That fire police millage, I guess we'll see, but the police millage on itself at the bottom, that one has an adequate balance. So I don't know, I guess we'll see, but
I don't have a crystal ball, but I don't think if you did not renew that police fund that would. Our expenses every year are $820,000 and we bring in 954. So if you took that away, you're not, half of that is about, half of the millage, the one that's split between police and fire is about $450,000. You're taking that away. There's not enough to sustain it for probably another 5 to 6 years.
Okay, so we would still have to have that in
Yes.
addition to it.
And those are just, you can't quote me on that. I have to go back
Right,
and do some math, but
I'm following.
Yep.
Should we put all this together in a presentation for tomorrow's open house when we unveil our brand new fire station 1?
Oh, yes.
Make it really about
Come see the $10 million building. By the way,
because I'm a little defensive on this because our fire station project, should say we, the project has gone so well, budget wise, no surprises. But then you hear people aren't afraid to chirp and you hear how much did they spend on that Taj Mahal? And so this is coming right on this millage will come right on the heels of the new fire station. It's not ideal, but the better we educate the residents. We didn't do anything wrong. I'm just saying it's
Oh, I'm
helpful.
just saying that most people would then accuse you of politicking.
Oh, if you want to get a response when your house starts on fire or you have a heart attack, we're just educating the public. I'm being a little sarcastic.
Chief and I have had this conversation because this has come up pretty frequently. Or pretty recently. So we've been strategizing how we're going to put this all together very quickly.
Well, this is helpful, very helpful.
First of all, I'm in full support of public safety. Whether it's a blue uniform or brown uniform, I don't care. But I think that we owe it to the taxpayers to clean up our act and say, this is the millage that's expiring. This is a millage that we're going to propose to be passed before just saying, hey, we got 3 fire millages here. Some are expiring, some are good, to renew them. I think the people today are going to be asking the hard question.
I don't think there's nothing that we need to clean up other than it's confusing and disappointing that
Exactly what it is.
how the previous board, it's just how it came to be, which I don't know. But as far as the numbers go, your overhead is you guys are very lean. And I'm completely comfortable with how the money has been spent and that you're not doing, it's been very efficient.
And I'd be willing to, if there's like open houses or whatever, we can lay everything out, and show people what is being spent, how much is coming in, how much is not coming in that needs to be covered. We could certainly have open houses to educate public anytime.
And so policy wise, what this board can do, because Chief is doing his job and Manager Smith, as far as running a tight ship, making sure, every dollar all the numbers are right, which they are. From the boards, what the board can do as a policy to really make a difference is keep looking into, what's the majority of the services, all the money, right? Primarily, we've got the expressway. So first response calls to the expressway. Those hotels along the expressway have been a huge intense first responders, those crime-ridden hotels. So we're working on recouping costs from the hotels. Can't do anything about the expressway, but those hotels without hurting the assisted living centers. And then I don't know how we were going to fund it, but this fire station 3 that was previously discussed, no way. We don't even have. No. So as a board, I think we owe it to residents to educate them, and we're not going to get a fire station 3. And we're going to catch everything back that we can from the bad business owners who aren't being good neighbors. But we are providing a great service for.
One of the things that a lot of people new to the township don't realize is that the board, when they came up with the additional proposal for the villages, said that we'll continue paying so many hundreds of thousands of dollars out of our general fund so we can keep that millage low.
That's what Ben
That was an
said.
agreement in one of the villages. So if we strike that out, there's justification. It cleans up the entire budget process.
Just to clarify, I did run that by legal as well. It wasn't spelled out in the approved millage language, but it was a commitment by the board at the time.
Correct.
So, but that could be changed.
That was in 2014, I think.
That was the 2004. Because it was in the promotion, the educational pieces that were done.
You'll
Back
have to
then.
go back and look. I don't think there was a 400,000 put in from the general fund back as far as 2004. 'Cause I don't think it started till after I got on the board, and that was in 2008. Or was it 2004? I guess it was 2004.
We'll be able to confirm it pretty
Yeah.
easily.
Well,
Yeah.
that's just part of the education process to the taxpayer.
So in the connection back from the questions were, so what happened? What's changed since the failed millage in 2002? And it does state here that the 2004 millage would collect 0.58. The general fund would continue to support the fire fund with an annual contribution of 400,000. However, these continued contributions and existing millages for the fire department are not enough to offset the increased cost of labor and equipment. I don't know if there was a resolution passed back then, or maybe there was another one passed. I'm not sure.
But this is doable, right? Makes sense.
Sure. Chief? Makes sense.
I worry that we're gonna
I-
have some public pushback with not letting them know. And so as long as we're good about getting postcards or whatever out, it's hard because I think the township can't fund propaganda for a village, but then the Firefighters Association can certainly send out, but we would need to get that information from our end and really kind of do some door knocking to educate the public what it's for and why.
Yeah, I did.
Not loud.
To Chief's point, I think we would have to look at how we can get someone that could dedicate themselves to making sure that we have the right educational pieces in a very short amount of time.
Yes.
Our staff is strapped. A lot of them are new. A lot of them are still trying to figure out just the operations, and I'm not just talking about myself. But I think that we have to have some strategy behind that to get it out quickly. Because what would the election, what day in February would the election be?
27th.
The 27th of February. So we're talking just about 60 days, 90 days,
Yeah.
sorry.
How much is that millage that is expiring, bringing in per month?
Per month?
Yeah,
Oh, I only work in years. Sorry.
per year, that's okay.
About $1.1 million. Would you say that's about accurate, Jen? It's 0.5, it was
So-
rolled back, but
You said the 0.4 brings in
100,000 a month, give or take.
Yeah.
The chief was absolutely correct, at the last millage. It was your association that went to the streets and explained it to the folks, what it was gonna be used for, and that the balance that the board committed back then kept the millage request low.
And we can't advocate at the board level, but we can educate.
I think that's called PAX.
No, just educate the numbers, which is what we're doing tonight, just,
Yeah.
making it available then the association can figure out what those numbers mean for
Well, going forward,
voters.
We could have scheduled open houses. I mean, I don't care if it's every Wednesday, and sit here and explain to one person how to do it.
It makes a lot of sense. I mean, as far as operation goes,
If you have a 20-year millage, you give a 5% increase every year, which they have a 100% increase in our call line, they have 5,000 calls in the fund, and we don't have it near the capacity of funding to do that currently.
right.
So we can explain all this, and we can reduce service if there's no good cost, if that's an option. Otherwise, we need to those funded service.
and we can put together some talking points, some graphs that show we got to get creative with how we present the information.
And so the
Bottom
education
line-
campaign,
Bottom line, the costs are what they are and they need to be on the millage.
yep.
So
I do like the idea if it's possible to, if it doesn't pass in February, we still have 2 more shots to explain it versus waiting till August.
not in favor of the shell game. Let's just put it out there. This is what the millage needs to be.
100%.
So
I think people want to keep the same level of service that they're used to, and
of course it would.
And if we keep it factual, we can even put that in a newsletter.
Mhm.
Because we're not promoting up or down. We're saying these are the facts.
exactly.
And I think residents deserve that. And I think we should go forward with that.
Yeah, and the problem is not the dollar amounts themselves. It's just a little harder to understand because there's 2.5, but
Shell game.
and it's staggered too.
yep.
And I would assume somewhere we can figure out if someone does ask why there were the history behind each millage. I mean, we can go through and read the language itself, but what the theory was, what the thought process was, I'm hoping there's something somewhere that we can actually put that to, like, if someone does ask, why are there three? We go, well, this one was put in place specifically for this. This one was taken to the voters specifically for this. And hopefully we can back into that and explain that.
Great idea.
And they were.
They were,
They were at the time, yeah.
I'm sure they were, they had to be.
When
So we
you're
just gotta
going for a new millage, it's a re-education.
That's what I had. Yeah, so the the current millage brings in 1.1 million.
Annually?
Yes,
The one which.
the ones that's expiring.
Expiring.
Yep.
Oh, that is not anywhere near, yeah.
Not enough, chief.
We're about 300,000 in the hole every year.
Yep.
And so we've been operating off of the
500.
fund balance, which was pretty significant 10 years ago, but if you add personnel, it drops that down and we're just gonna run out in 25.
Which that's why personally, I like the 10-year spread of having maybe two, because then if there is adjustments that need to be made 10 years from now, we can do that in 10 years. But I think if we come back in 4 years and after doing all this education and we start asking for more money, that's when you're gonna lose trust.
For the residents out there who are part of our education, just reminding people that this, what we're talking about here is operations services, solely, and it's a completely separate issue from, funding for the Fire Station 1 project itself. And we can do a good job of explaining where that funding came from, which has no millage. I mean, this.
Yeah, the fire station project itself is being funded by general fund.
Yep. Saved up and then bonding and then the additional
And
revenue
bonds,
from the
yes.
state.
Yeah.
So that is, we can share all of it. Or we need to.
Okay, so we spent a lot of time talking about fire, but there is also a library renewal.
Mhm.
I think we have our marching orders on the fire millage, so we'll get to work on that. The library renewal, is that also something we want to see in February? And the only reason I bring that up is there's an election next week for them for the county to actually reduce the library millage. So I just throw that out there.
The library millage that's expiring this year, that's just for the building maintenance, correct?
I believe so, yeah.
Yes.
Like operation.
Yeah,
as well.
because once again, people are gonna say, wait a minute. You're asking for a KDL millage and now you're asking for a library millage.
So KDL rents this space and provides the services and this is for everything tangible.
And that's countywide. And this is
Yeah.
township only.
It is for maintenance of the Cascade Library and Wisner Center.
And we do not, that number, right, is totally adequate. We don't need to increase that. I don't think we need.
I don't think so. I mean, I do think so.
And then this would be the millage, the fund where the interior refresh will come from. Am I right on that, Jade?
That's already been,
It's already done.
that's in the 24 budget.
Oh, okay.
That's from this.
But it is from this.
It is from,
Yes.
yes, I'm sorry, it is from this, yes.
So has been saved for a long time. Is everything in here right now original to when they built it?
Yeah, pretty much.
What's that like?
Audio visual improvements in here and that kind of stuff.
Roof replacement.
Oh, we get
There's money in there for that. Yep.
Yeah, I think the millage is enough to support, I mean, I actually ran a couple of budgets that would look back at the history, but looking back a few years, it looks like the millage is covering our expenses. That's before we've actually done a true assessment too, right? I look out at Melanie. because-
Holding your breath.
I mean, we clearly aren't showing the meeting tonight because the audiovisual is not working. So there's definitely a need for some upgrades to the building.
Timing wise, I think that's the question he's asking.
Oh,
What are the 3 dates again?
February 27th is primary, May
First Tuesday in May.
2nd,
The beginning of May.
if we had one, August 1st, Tuesday after the first Monday, November, I think it's the 5th. I look real quick at my calendar.
Probably not wait till November.
May 7th, if we had it. August 6th is for sure, and November 5th are for sure.
August.
Okay. And do you think that there will be a May one?
No, but things always come up. I didn't think Forest Hills was gonna have a November one either, but I suggested they wait till February, but they decided.
Isn't the only other district out there is Lowell that may have something, if they have anything. Right.
So do you want a date right now?
Only if you want it to be February 27th.
How about we say not February? Is that okay?
On the library, we
Yeah.
don't need it. We don't need it in February. You
Okay.
still got a healthy fund balance.
Yeah, we're gonna need it next year.
Well, it's all, it
Question
doesn't
is-
matter because
But
it's
we
all for
shouldn't,
the following
but we
year.
shouldn't rush it.
Yeah,
We can
but-
put the language
It
together
depends on
for
the year, like it's all gonna. be the
renewal of a
same.
millage.
It doesn't matter at all. Okay, so how about not February?
Okay, so fire it is. Okay, and then as far as calculating the amount for fire, I'll have to get with the chief. We'll have to do some, in Plant Moran, to do some forecasting to make sure that we bring forth a number that makes sense to cover the budget, and then also figure out what to do with the 27 police and fire one and how we roll that back.
Yes.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see the wording on that one.
Yeah, and Jen, I'll get with you on that, or we can send that to them. Because that's the only one that I don't have language in.
That's for you. I'm gonna tell Jen.
Okay.
Are you guys looking to not renew the 27?
Not sure.
Combine everything into.
In a perfect
just one?
world, we'd
In a perfect
combine,
world?
yeah. That would be,
I'm just asking. Not that
and
I have
it sounds like
issue
we
with
would
it.
still, it sounds like though we'll still need the police portion, so that's where it's gonna
Yeah.
have to be figured out.
Yep.
Kent County Clerk has a copy of that ballot.
Yes, Jen's been helping me get ballot language. Okay. So, okay, we're good with millages. The last two slides are just some fun slides. It just shows people that are working, staff that are working throughout the township and what we do every day. It's always good to make sure we recognize our staff. We have lots of conversations here, but our staffs are the ones that boots on the ground every day, making it happen with the decisions that you all are making and working with the residents. So with that, I'll answer any questions that there are. I know we've got staff here too to answer questions.
I do have a question on the budget on page 7. Cemetery openings and closings. $1,500. If we do an average of 60 burials a year, full interment. If we did only 40, that's $32,000. We would charge $800 per grave dog. So I'm trying to figure out what that 1,500 represents.
That's on the revenue side. It's a good question.
Oh, on page
I'll
7.
have to circle back with you.
Okay. We did just raise our fees,
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense.
800.
I mean, that should be a pretty easy number to back into. I'm not actually sure. I think we just carried that over from last year.
That was a carryover.
I think we just, looking at that budget, that's what I would say. But I will back into that. And if it makes sense to increase it, which it probably does, then that's what we'll do.
Thank you.
Jade, you did a really good job.
Thank you.
Superior work,
Thanks. I had staff help too. It wasn't just me.
of course.
On Department 225 on page 2, is that where we've lumped in the full-time cost of a finance director?
Yes.
Okay.
Is that enough, Jade?
Yeah, yes. In looking at the way this is, yeah, Yeah, because there was some consolidation from like the treasurer's office, the clerk's office, all that went into administration too. Could be something we look at in the future, breaking that out and actually putting a finance sub-department that could incorporate those activities. There might be a better way to do it.
But that's where it is for. now.
Yes, yes,
Okay.
that is exactly where it's at. And probably the best thing that I forgot to mention is that the general fund balance is projected to go up $52,000 in 2024. Oh, minus 20 for hazmat, 32. So we definitely have a balanced budget plus a little extra surplus.
Balanced budget with a lot more to show for it.
Yeah, I think we've got a lot to do in 24 if the budget is approved as is, for sure.
But at least this capital outlay is actually capital outlay. It's exciting.
No other questions?
Well, there's a lot of detail. I'm just, I think I understood everything that you've lumped aware. And if I have any questions, I'll just ask you in the email.
Please do so.
Meeting.
So the intent would be then, unless there's something that we glaringly missed and we have to come back and have another conversation, we need to bring this before you at the next meeting for formal adoption and approval. So we will go through that as well as the millage resolution.
I think you said the healthcare expenses, you've factored in what the increases were for group and individual and.
Yeah, the average was 5% that was factored in here.
Okay.
Yep.
And so what was the cost? Did you factor in people not taking this insurance? Cost of them not taking it?
Did you estimate total liability, like just a total risk, or do you individualize it? Okay, so it's all broken out into what people are currently doing. So if they don't take it, then it wasn't factored in.
But we paid them not to take it, right?
Oh, you're talking about the stipend?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's figured in. Sorry,
Okay.
I misunderstood.
And as far as the MERS increase, you don't know that yet, right? Because we haven't gotten. So what I mean by that was people who were on the defined benefit plan before, we get a statement from MERS that would tell us to keep up and not make our deficit go any further, we'd have to charge 5%, let's just say, to the employees. And so then the board would decide whether to charge that whole 5%, or whether we should charge them 2%, or we should absorb it or whatever. And the logic there was if they got a 5% raise and we charged them 5% for the defined benefit increase, they netted zero. So you said you don't have the MERS numbers yet, so you don't know what that increase is per employee yet.
I don't know if that's worked into the calculation, but I'll get with Katie and I'll get a summary of the whole unfunded liability and pension costs.
Okay.
Breakout to you prior to the next meeting, so you have that answers.
Open space fund, I already know, but could you explain what that goes towards? Because I think
It's not just to pay off the debt that was taken on to buy the properties that the open space fund. I think that was what I was told. And then after I looked further into the language, it actually does cover the operations and improvements at both of those.
had we been doing that from
No.
that fund?
No.
So previously it was just the debt service on Peace, maybe Burton also?
Burton. Mhm. Yes.
So, and you did that this year, right? For
I
the
did.
first time, actually take maintenance costs out of that.
Yeah, we did the overhead allocation calculation and applied it to that millage.
I think it shows, I mean, this was with the same money we had, the whole parks, we didn't have a parks department at all. So great job finding money for, legitimate funding for all the stuff that we're with their existing revenue for all the projects and updates that we're doing right now under Director Mannion. I think that's an area that's underfunded personally, as we look at the numbers.
The parks and building and grounds.
Hasn't, I
They
mean,
do a lot. They do a lot within the township, probably more than just what you would think parks and building and grounds folks do.
and I think people might be surprised to know that there's nothing, there's no funding or set aside or hasn't been in the past for acquisition. Just sharing with the public to make expectations reasonable. We get a lot of requests, you should buy this property, you should buy so-and-so, you should do this. But the reality is we have to work with the money that we actually have. And unfortunately, the township hasn't been, we can only go forward. But Director Mannion, you are, what's the saying when you're doing a ton with the tiny bit that you have? Good job.
A lot with a little.
No, Jay, this is very, very helpful and night and day. It makes sense. For people who aren't able to see the packet with all the actual numbers, I think will be helpful.
Yeah, and what you have before you tonight will be put on the website as well. Actually, it already is, correct?
The packets
The-
on the website.
The PowerPoint is actually on the website because of not that yet, because I wanted to make sure that there were no changes. So the $1,500, we'll look into that. That may change. I got to take the 20,000 out from the hazmat. So the final budget will be put on the website once it's approved.
Further discussion, questions?
Very good.
Any board action that you're asking for, Manager Smith, or just,
She just want to approve the budget now. I'm just kidding. Can't do that. I have to write it up correctly. No,
we can give you a gold star?
no, we're good. 15th though, will be a big meeting.
Yes, but this is really helpful. And we haven't done it before. Would anyone from the township want to speak? Get credit for all the work you guys have been doing? Melanie, you want to just come up and just start talking? No, you don't have to, but it's just fun to listen to. You do not have to, but if there's anything you want to say.
Just how grateful I am for your support. And I think that what I came into, I don't think any of you knew the amount of deferred maintenance that has come before you this year. And I cannot tell you how much I appreciate Jade and his expertise and his ability to really justify all the different expenses that we put forward to you today. And again, I know it seems like a lot. I come from a very tight belted family and it was hard to ask for all those things, but it's pretty crazy when you have a dump truck that's 26 years old. And vehicles that are 13 years old that are rusting out. And to me, my last thing is, one of the things I learned in Ottawa County is, people are okay spending money as long as it's quality and it's sustainable, right? It's like improving your sustainability into the future. And also if it represents who you are. And sometimes I look around and I see all these beautiful vehicles and beautiful homes. And then we have something with our logo on it that looks like it came from another township. So I think it's important to have things that represent who our constituents are.
Do you want to say which township that looks like it's from?
No.
I would suggest you do that.
I'll just say the one I live in.
Hey. Anything further before we move on from Article 9?
I just, it's been a whirlwind of a 7 weeks, and I guess I have to, hats off to the directors that are here and the staff that may or may not watch this, but it's been like nose to the grindstone just to make sure that this got presented to you on time. And then, just the natural taking on a new position and taking on, there's a lot to take on. So I think now once we get this is the first big hurdle. Now we can move on to some fun stuff in 2024.
Totally. And we knew what we were getting with you and with you, Jade, both the new hires, but we were kind of thankful that you guys were a little bit ignorant coming in. But great job. And I think it's going to be so much better.
And hats off to the rest of the staff that's here too, that's been here quite a while, because they're extremely helpful and they know.
We were not ignorant, but it all works out. This is great.
I got you guys' back.
A lot happened in 7 weeks,
So,
but this is excellent. And it covers everything. It's great.
right. And if there's something else that you go through past things that you're like, oh, we didn't touch on that, just let me know and I'll get the information to you.
Great. How about Article 11, public comments? Always the fun part, whether it's on the agenda or not.
Two public people here.
Dorothy Cribbs, 1980 Deerfield Court. I don't know how to speak to this because I don't have a lot of information, but I've been seeing stuff out there that there's legislation going on in Lansing that will something to do with wind and solar stuff. And I don't know if we have an ordinance that protects the people in our township against whatever the legislation is proposing to do. So do you see or do you think that you guys will put something together to help protect us against property being taken to use for the wind and solar initiatives, I guess is my question. And then I want to go back to, did I understand that our fire costs have doubled the amount of, I kind of walked in late, but I know you guys do an outstanding job. We had in my newcomers group, we had Andy Albright, he's Lieutenant Andy Albright come and talk to us, and he talked about the fire station. And that is something that our group was just amazed at, a bunch of things that we didn't know. And if people are thinking that they are building a Taj Mahal, the hot zones and the cool zones that are needed because of the toxins that they're exposed to, maybe I'm just ignorant, but I know other people were surprised too in my group about that whole thing, and about that, how important it is for us to get out of our homes because of all the toxins that are burning in it. It's not, the fire that you're afraid of, it's the smoke and the toxicity of that. And that the risk that they take to their lives because of the cancer that they can get from all these toxins. So I hope that during the open house, we're going to be educating people to those zones, and hopefully a lot of people come out and see that, because there's a lot of things in that building that Andy educated us to, that that it would be important stuff. And maybe we already put it in the newsletters, but I thought I'd been reading them, just the things that have happened in the last, 20 years or whatever, that I haven't been paying attention about the risk of fires and what they actually need. So I'm just saying that. And we gave the firefighters some gift cards, and one of our members, she contributed a lot of herself to the gift cards that we gave because they came and rescued her. So she felt very grateful of that. So I think if you educate people, there shouldn't be a problem with the millage. I think that's a big thing, is just being educated. So, and that's it. Sorry, I didn't know that it started at 6.
Oh, thank you. Any other comments? Okay, manager comments?
we're going to recruit you to be on our committee for when we start to educate the public on the fire department. Um, no, I have nothing else tonight. Oh, there is an open house tomorrow or Thursday, tomorrow at the open house or at the fire station for the uncupping of the hose or grand opening as we want to call it, but 5 o'clock for anyone that wants to come out.
The legislation in Lansing that Ms. Cribbs was referencing, do you,
Yes.
I mean,
I wrote that down. I know it's been going on. I don't know what state it's at. And then I will come back to the board with some more information on that and then get some direction if that's where we want to go.
and I know that there was, letters to oppose it that we sent before Manager Smith, started. There was a draft resolution that you could adopt, and we can't just pass something at the township level to protect people from the state. The state law trumps the township level. So the best thing we can do is kind of work through the Michigan Township Association to advocate for what we want. But township is the lowest, then county, then state, so we don't get to, we can't just have a magic wand that protects our residents. We're stuck with the state leadership that we have, or the decisions, I should say. But we have done what we can and worked with other neighboring townships to oppose it. That would be terrible. Some would say that would be terrible, or local municipalities. I would agree. Terrible.
I have nothing else.
Neither do I. Anyone else? Board comments?
Normally I stand up at the end of the meeting and I thank our citizens that come to witness us and voice their opinions and their concerns. And this time I get the pleasure of standing up and thanking our staff. You guys do a wonderful job. I think we got the right people in there. If you want an extra nickel for the department or for what you need, don't hesitate to ask, because you got the trust of us. Manager here and the interim manager have done a wonderful job at making sure that the dollars are clear. Some of us have a concern about the nutshell game, but we don't anymore. And got a couple other things to say real very quite quickly. Is I have a concern that some of our contract corporations are not in the best interest of the residents. The residents, the taxpayers here have stated repeatedly what they want in their township as far as vision goes. And when we have corporations that we have hired as a board to do things such as implement our strategic plan that is contrary to the residents' desires in writing, we need to be shed of those people that are outside influence telling you how many entrances and exits to the freeway, telling you where the high residence hotels and apartments are going, in contrary to what this board has told them to do, in contrary to what the residents want. They need to be gone. And one last thing, Mr. Manager. You're going to find that when it comes to spending more money on the Tahoe building, I'm going to be asking some tough questions. And this board has already heard this before. The old timers on the board know where I'm coming from when we talk about spending more money on HVAC system, spending more money on repairs. When we had contract engineer companies go through and say, this is good for the next 15 years. You don't need to worry about HVAC. You don't need to worry about the ceiling or anything else. Thankfully, Mr. Manager, we have seen the light on some of those contractors that we have hired in the past to do that. But I'm still going to ask the tough question. Why are we spending more money a few years after we bought a building that we continue to sock money into? Thank you for hearing an old man. I'm done.
Any other comments? I would just like to say thank you to our staff. I think we have a fantastic staff, and you guys have been through a lot of changes over the past 2.5 years. and a lot of uncertainties, but I couldn't be prouder and happier to work with everybody. I think you've done a fantastic job, especially under some of the unknowns. As supervisor, I will say that I think we have the team that we need, the leadership that we need, and I'm just so looking forward to 2024 because I think our the uncertainty and the changes have kind of come to an end, and there's just so many great things that we can do. And I thank you guys for sticking with us and doing such a great job for the township. People, I don't think, realize how much is done, but that's a compliment to you guys. And then lastly, just so everyone can start thinking about it, we get this is all from property taxes. We don't have an income tax in Cascade Township. This is all property taxes. And one of the things I was that was interesting to learn is that the reason our property taxes break down as far as 72% is residential, 22% is commercial, so stores along 28th Street, 6% is industrial. So our bread and butter and the reason Cascade Township is what it is because our residential property values are so high. So I think personally that this board's number one priority should be, looking out to focus on what we do, to focus on keeping that the way it is, keeping our property values high in the residential. And I think a lot of decisions as we look at our master plan and zoning, to really protect residents and protect residents' best investments, we want to make sure that we're considering 72% is residential, 6% is industrial, and how those interact.
Agree. We are working on the master plan right now. And it's been a bit of a battle. And I'm fighting.
You're doing a good job.
We're gonna get our point across. So hang in there. We all live in this township. I want this to be one of the best townships in the state. And it's not just for now, but it's for 40 years from now. I want to do it right so that all the communities around us will be jealous that this township's been preserved. So
I'm confident now that internally we have the staff, everything set to be the best that we can be. And then policy wise at this board, looking down the road, how we best protect this township, despite the intense outside pressures that we're facing as a community.
thank you.
Enough of the soapbox. Thank you for coming and sitting through all this. Good work. With that, is there
Motion made for adjournment.
Apparently not.
Doubt you're going to find a second, but we'll give it a try.
Second.
So motion by trustee Shipley, supported by clerk Slater to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.